Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this little video webinar here. We wanted to obviously talk a little bit about EDR technology and what it means for you in the time of this epidemic that we're dealing with. Obviously, there is a lot of concern on remote access security, and we here feel that EDR is a very valuable tool as it pertains to you solidifying that remote access model. So my name is Shaun Bertrand. I am the Vice President of our Advanced Testing Services team here at CBI, otherwise known as the Red Team. I've been with the organization for 18 years, and the best way I describe myself is very passionate about InfoSec. I am joined today by Ryan Swisher, one of our allies here at CBI, very well positioned also to talk about EDR. But Ryan, why don't you give yourself a little intro here, and we'll move forward with our agenda.
All right, so I'm on the other side of the spectrum than Shaun. I'm the blue team guy, so my job's to detect him and try to find other adversaries. Been in the cybersecurity realm for quite a while. Went from help desk to working with multiple DoD agencies, and then finally went commercial and found CBI. So, I mean, it's a joy being here. You get to work with multiple customers. The environments are always different. Everybody's technology is different. So, just like attackers are constantly evolving in their attacks and then different tools they use, I'm kind of in a good position where I get to see it from different organizations, whether you're financial or you're in the technology space or healthcare. So I enjoy what I do.
You sure do. And you are very passionate about it as well, based on the time that we've worked together. And Ryan and I and the SOC team work very closely together. He helps me understand some of the ways that they're detecting some of these new attacks, and I let him know some of the different ways that we're leveraging new attacks. So, yeah, but today we're here to talk a little bit about EDR. So let's start with just, what is it? Endpoint detection and response. The best way that I describe it, and I hate using this term, but next generation AV, it's not your grandmother's antivirus. So as I think many of us know, and I'm not going to drop any names, traditional antivirus vendors have struggled significantly over the last, 5, maybe even 10 years. Because their model was based on a signature-based perspective, right? They're looking for bad things rather than looking at anomalous behavior. So EDR has really helped to fill that void. And what it is basically anomaly-based detection that isn't reliant on signatures. It has the capability to understand things that are going on, like lateral movement tactics and privilege escalation techniques, and its goal is to be able to prevent those, and it's also obviously instrumental at being able to provide the notifications and alerts. Ryan, anything you wanted to cue in on there? Did anything I missed there from a high-level perspective of what EDR is?
EDR is great. So just like you said, the previous AV is all about signature-based, and you're only as good as your most recent definitions. I mean, some of the folks have heard of the pyramid of pain, which I use when I train other analysts, and the hash and the IP and domain names that everybody's all about for Intel, those phase out. They're hardly ever used twice. So you got to really look at those TTPs, the mutations, what command line is actually being executed. And that's where EDR comes in. You get down to the kernel level of what's going on.
It's a great explanation. I think is a good segue to talking about the benefits, obviously, is being able to see that granular based information. And I'll tell you what, when I talk about the benefits, we've conducted, I think, over 1,700 Red Team engagements since the inception of our team. It is very significant when we are in an environment that has EDR versus that of traditional antivirus. Usually our customers have much more enhanced visibility on awareness on what we're doing. And to be quite honest, some of these tools are very good at blocking some of the custom developed payloads that we try to sneak through it. Now, no solution is bulletproof, but it is such a significant difference because our perspective, or my perspective, is that if you're, if the attacker is going to take a certain life cycle, right? And we use the MITRE attack framework a lot to define what that life cycle or probability matrix looks like. But they're going to do some things, and most attackers are going to follow a prescriptive path, and other adversaries may follow a different path. But if you could at least identify one thing along all these different things that they're doing, you obviously then have the ability to inject yourself and reduce the impact. And that's one of the biggest benefits, is that increased visibility and awareness. And we see it firsthand when we deal with it from a red team capacity. Typical features and functionality out of a good EDR tool include a lot of different things. Obviously, that next generation anomaly-based detection and prevention. A lot of these tools now are incorporating firewall mechanisms in them, because it's an absolute necessity as well. You talk about things like forced authentication attacks over 135 and 445, or 139, 445. Those are things that some tools can see, but having a firewall provides a lot more visibility. And also what that firewall does is provide the admins and guys like Ryan the ability to quarantine or segment suspectful hosts, right? So if you see some malicious or nefarious behavior going on, you can do some certain things to leverage that firewall and other mechanisms to kind of isolate that host as you begin your incident response process on it. Ryan, anything else come to mind in regards to features, functionality, benefits?
I think ultimately it's just your visibility. So I would say statistically, most people worry about logging their firewalls, their servers, domain controllers. EDR is, the goal is to be on every endpoint. Prior organizations I worked with, we had it on our ATMs, and we're detecting different cash out schemes and, ATM-based malware. So it can go just about anywhere you want it, and it gives you that visibility. You're no longer, the goal is to detect attacks quicker. And, I think the average time is 6 months. That may have changed, recently, but actually seeing, Jim Bob's workstation and what he's doing day to day, what processes he's executing, that's critical, instead of waiting until the attackers move laterally and you want to stop him before he gets that footprint.
That perspective on coverage and scalability when it comes to rolling this stuff out and getting that agent on as many hosts as you can is a perfect segue for talking about how this remote access thing is driving us to obviously focus in on remote access security and things that we can do. And I think coverage is a good perspective there. So with remote access security being at the forefront of everybody's mind right now, everybody is asking us, what can we do? What should we be doing? And there's a number of different things. We're going to touch upon it in some of the future videos and webinars that we have. But one of the things we're leading with significantly is EDR, and it's all about the coverage, right? You've got to be able to deploy it on the systems where it makes the most sense. And the goal is to have 99% coverage throughout the entire environment. But I think a good EDR tool will have that compatibility. So it should have, obviously Windows, Linux, and Mac compatibility. But we're seeing a lot of the new tools now have capabilities for some embedded technologies in addition to mobile. All right, mobile is a big attack vector that we think is increasing in popularity and will. And so EDR on the endpoint from a mobile perspective is very attractive. So the coverage is very important when you talk about that. And we talk about, when we talk about the remote access security stuff, everybody is pushing their workforce remotely right now. Everybody is now going to be, working from home, and those present obviously significant risks. The home network is insecure. You likely have insecure IoT devices all throughout your home network. So those are the things that really scare me as we push this workforce into that remote perspective. And that's where EDR can be absolutely beneficial. I know there's a lot of vendors out there that are supporting like burst licensing models, and everybody is very accommodating throughout this epidemic that we're dealing with. everybody from Microsoft with their O365 licensing to these EDR vendors who are making it easier and more cost effective to you to roll it out to, home users or BYOD devices and things of that nature. But Ryan, what else are you seeing or thinking about as it pertains to EDR in the remote access kind of mentality?
Once the users get home, you have that trust that they're actually working, they're using the same hygiene that you would expect them if they're at the office. So I mean, it's not just EDR, but like you said, firewall. You need to be able to track where users are going on the internet. Do the same policies at work to where, social media or personal email being blocked. Do you have visibility and can you still handle that on a
Yeah.
BYOD device or, that personal laptop? I know some vendors roll out like a proxy endpoint agent, but it doesn't help you when it's there. And if there's malware or something malicious on that machine, you don't know about it until they bring it back onto your corporate network. EDR, especially with the cloud base, I mean, it doesn't matter where they are. And if you have a suspicious indicator, and like you had mentioned, the quarantining a machine, that's critical in my job trying to research, like stopping the spread. So, he's at the coffee shop, I get the alert, and then he disconnects. Well, I quarantine it. The next time he comes online, that machine's not going anywhere in our network, and I still have access. So it's crucial to have, that visibility.
That's a good point too. I see kind of two phases to this whole epidemic. There is the push to the remote workforce, getting everybody, with the ability to work from home. But then we're going to see the opposite. We're going to see people start to, come back to the office. And that's what concerns me as well, too. All these laptops, whether corporate or BYOD, where have they been? What malicious environments have they been in? And what have they picked up as far as any threats along the way? And then coming back into the environment and reintroducing those threats inside. So I think one of the other important things to discuss is how other organizations have applied this technology in lieu of what Ryan was talking about as well. We look at things like, I hear a lot of questions about SSL VPN and split tunneling. So split tunneling is kind of a double-edged sword, right? You're giving your endpoints either the ability to tunnel all of their internet traffic through your infrastructure, which is good if you can obviously float those communications and controls through all the intrusion detection devices you have and infrastructure countermeasures that you've developed. If you don't, though, if you can't afford that taxing on these devices from a bandwidth and performance perspective, then you enable split tunneling and you let that endpoint for any internet access just go out their internet pipe that they're on right now. That scares me as well too, right? Because now you're opening up a number of different attacks where your existing controls and countermeasures are no longer present. And that's where EDR can fit the bill. I was on the phone with a customer a couple weeks ago, and they developed what I believe to be a pretty good model. It was SSL VPN with two-factor authentication, and what they did was they had an EDR solution deployed out there, and then on their SSL VPN they enabled client host integrity checking, so that the only clients that would be allowed to connect to that SSL VPN were those that had the EDR agent deployed. Otherwise, you're not coming on our network. So those are some observations that I've seen in regards to organizations applying this technology successfully.
I mean, there's been plenty of players in the space. I mean, IBM had, Trusteer, which in the bank, we've deployed that to our customers. So with EDR, a lot of users are already keyed in. Yeah, okay, you're on the VPN, your traffic's going through. But if that host machine's infected, you've got reverse VNC. You could have, that user's machine sitting there scraping screenshots and waits for the user to leave, a RDP session logged in, and then takes access of that. So that visibility, that control, is going to be critical.
I believe so as well. Yeah, it's just so impactful, especially when we see it firsthand. The struggles that our red team has to go through just to bypass some of this good EDR, and we're not always successful. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. but just getting past it from a preventative point of view is really challenging. And then from a detection point of view, it is extremely challenging to do some things, because really what I think EDR is well positioned for is to be able to detect more of those LOL, those living off the land type attacks, right? Valid account attacks, grabbing a valid account through a password spraying attack and then getting internal access somehow, and then trying to enumerate your way through and looking at Active Directory. EDR is just going off. It's like a Christmas tree, and it's really hard to stay covert in regards to that. So those are some use cases, or at least some kind of case studies that we've seen with an emphasis on the results that EDR can have. Some other major players in the space, I think it's important, we on the red team, we need to be vendor agnostic. All right. We have to be. Our reputation, our integrity is based on it. We want to provide solutions. We don't want to provide specific, vendor technologies, and solutions are what we lead with. So when you talk about major players in the space, we see a few. Primarily CrowdStrike and Carbon Black are kind of leading the forefront. We deal with, as far as what I see in the field most, is CrowdStrike. Extremely reputable, incredible solution. Carbon Black as well, some good stuff out there. But obviously, it's not just plug and play. It's easier plug and play now than it ever has been. There's a lot of these tools that have great prepackaged policies, but the goal is to obviously roll it out in more of a detective mode first. You don't have prevention enabled, and then eventually, as you're listening and monitoring and looking for the things it's flagging on that might be considered false positive, you move it into that preventative model. And the time that takes is where you want to move from detection to prevention as fast as you can. And that's where I think really strong world-class EDR vendors are well positioned, is to take you from zero to hero as quick as you can in regards to getting that prevention rolled out, because the prevention is compelling. Gartner obviously has some great information on their Magic Quadrant regarding EDR right now, so there's some good information you can see there too. But in closing, we want this to be kind of short, sweet, and to the point. Just talk a little bit about the benefits and some of the features and functionality as it pertains to EDR. EDR is extremely important right now with the remote access model. If you're running with traditional antivirus right now and you've got your workforce remote, you should absolutely be having this discussion. And there's also a lot of price incentives going on right now. And I'm not selling anybody on anything, but budgets are tight. We get that. But everybody, as I mentioned right now, is extremely accommodating and helpful. And as such, there's some real opportunity that if you don't have it, you could talk to some of these different vendors and get a very attractive offering that makes it feasible for you to move forward. But it is in closing, or in summary, EDR is an instrumental tool. It's a game changer as it pertains to identifying a malicious adversary moving through your environment. And we feel it's something that everybody should have. So anything else that you wanted to add, Ryan?
I would say that, really on the EDR space, so many customers have multiple tools. They've got their, they're trying to monitor applications, app whitelisting, their proxy controls, any logging, their AV. Like EDR is that all-in-one tool. So when it comes down to actually saving money and visibility, like EDR is great. You've now got the AV. You know what applications are on that machine. You can sit there and whitelist or block, what you want or don't want to execute. So it's time to kind of reposition. I mean, everything is going down to the endpoint. We're no longer just worried about a server.
I agree wholeheartedly. So good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you listening. If you found this video on a remote access page, you can read or learn more about how we can help leverage some of these technologies to help you defend your team, your customers, and your data. Just fill out the contact form page to get in touch with us and learn more about some of our different assessment offerings. And as always, you can find us on our website, cbisecure.com. Follow us on social media, or you can email us at help@cbisecure.com. Or if you're still into the analog mode, you can give us a call at 800-747-8585. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.